Here at Be Freaking Awesome, we believe that life is too short to be anything less than extraordinary. Join us as we explore what it means to live authentically, grow continuously, and have a blast while doing it. Let's get started. Welcome, everyone, to this very special episode of the Be Freaking Awesome podcast. Today, we are celebrating our 175th episode. Whoop, 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 whoop. Brow, 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 brow. Very exciting. Angela, how do you feel? Just real fast.
I'm it's a little surreal. I'm like embracing the concept of surreal these days because last month, in month of May, my business turned 26 years old and I was 26 when I bought the business. And so it is trippy in my brain that my business it's a grown up. Like, I thought I was a grown up when I was 26, right? And I bought the business. It's crazy to me. And so then now I'm like, when we started the podcast, I'm not kidding you. I went through the Be Freaking Awesome book. I know what to talk about for the first 10 episodes, but what are we going to talk about after 10 episodes? So now to be at 175, and there is not a week that goes by that I'm like, I either meet somebody that I'm like, oh, we got to talk to them on the podcast, or that I don't think, okay, I've been thinking about this thing. Let's go. Let's talk about that. So I'm feeling really good, and also just proud of myself. I went through a phase where I thought, oh, you're so flaky. Like, everybody's always like, you're always doing something new. You're always doing something new. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Some people do things really consistent. And then there's this part of me that's like, I finally had to sit down and say, what is the evidence that proves you're flaky? And there was none. Yes. Do I have lots of interest? Yes. When you've been in business 26 years, have you tried lots of things? Yes. Did you figure out things that you thought was going to be a great idea and you decided that is super boring and not any fun or not very profitable? Yes. But that doesn't make me flaky. So 175 episodes. Now my brain is much less likely to offer that thought because I'm just like, whatever. You can't show up week after week 175 times.
Right.
And prove that you're flaky. So
for 3.5 years.
3.5 years. That's crazy town to me. And it's still fun.
Oh, yeah. And on the topic thing, there are even, you thought you were going to run out of topics after 10 episodes. I think now, number one, we both come up with new topics to talk about all the time. Some of them, listeners, you're welcome. Some of them never make it to air because it's just like not actually the right topic to talk about. It's just us spitballing something. But two, there's also plenty of topics that we're like, okay, we talked about this a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I have new thoughts and I have more thoughts. I have expanded how I've experienced this thing. And so we even revisiting topics to give it a fresh take, a new perspective, now that I've practiced thinking about this way for an extended period of time, I want to share the results of my experiment, different things like that. I think that's going to continue to happen as well.
Yeah, and like some of the episodes that when we look at our stats and we see what has resonated with people and what shows up in the top 10, because when you have 50 episodes and it shows up in the top 10, you're like, oh, okay, that's not hard. And 100 episodes, okay, well, this is still, I like literally logged our sheet, what were the episodes that were in the top 10 after 100 episodes. And then now, the longer this goes, then you're like, wow, this really keeps being a topic that people want to listen to and hopefully share. And probably the one that's the most surprising is making friends as an adult. That has been the most surprising thing to me. And when I open the conversation, it allows people to say to me my face, I struggle with that.
I also, not only is that one of our top listened to episodes in our podcast, but I get cold emails from people that say, hey, do you know that this episode shows up in the top 10 on friendships and something else category on Apple Podcast? Pay me money and I'll make your other episode show up there. But I think it's fascinating that not only is it popular to us, but like it actually is getting searched for and shown up in the results, which is probably why it's getting more listens because it's showing up in those results.
Yeah.
Whatever, math formulas, that's how they work. It's just, it is interesting the things that have resonated with people. Some of the things that we thought would be slam dunk, resonate, and amazing that people are like, meh, pass, whatever.
I've also been entertained or interested in the phenomena of there's been episodes that I loved, and then it does not take. And I have gone back and renamed the episode, and I've gone back and redone the description. And it's fascinating how that has changed then those results, and they actually
Mhm.
it starts getting listened to. So one of those examples is our toxic masculinity episode did very poorly, and it was such a great episode, and it was a lot of fun, and that was back when Josh was still the host, so it was one of our first 50 episodes, and we renamed it Dudes Doing Better at Work, how to what healthy masculinity looks like with Jeff Harry, and it has done so much better, which was fascinating because I didn't do it until after we'd had about 100 episodes. So it wasn't
Mhm.
like it was in a regular search. So I that's been interesting phenomenon
I
as well.
I also think that we would be remiss to have any type of milestone episode and not give a shout out to guest extraordinaire Corinna Drenau, who has done such a great job of promoting her episodes. And she, in some cases, I don't know that require is the right word, but prescribes as homework to her clients that they listen to our episodes. And so, pretty recently, what jumped to the top and has surpassed all other episodes is How Family Shapes Us with Corinna Drenau. And that was about
Mm.
family systems theory. And it passed It's Okay to Die with Nathan Wainwright, which for a long, long time was our number one episode. Anyway, I just think it would be we
Yeah,
always
shout
need to
out.
give a shout out to Corinna and just how much she has helped lift our podcast and our biggest cheerleader and hype person. And the times when she comes on and she's like, I get to be on your podcast? And we're
She's
like,
super cute.
Corinna, you're amazing. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So I
I
think that that's been really fun having all of the different guests.
Yeah, and we have a recent guest, Catherine Heiser, who
Mhm.
also is like, I want her to give me lessons on self promotion because hers
Yes.
has done very well fast out of the gate. In sharing, and I have had two different people that I ran into. They were like, "Hey, one of my friends was on your podcast. I didn't even know you had a podcast." So that's really fun in how they're promoting. The other thing I want to talk about with this, because um, I know that there is I don't people could be like, "Okay, we're just gonna listen to y'all brag this whole episode." We're not. We actually do have some points. Um, but one of the things that I think about a lot is what is the metric of success? And
Mm.
so when people say, "Oh, wow, so how do you make money doing podcasts?" I'm like, "I have no idea. If I ever figure it out, I'll let you know." Like,
Right.
that's not that's not it's not even on the list of metrics that I measure, number 1. Number 2, which is maybe weird because it is a big investment. We have a large investment into it, but people are like, "Oh, you must have a lot of downloads then." And I'm like, "Nope, that's not a metric I measure either." I mean, we do from the standpoint of looking, but like, we went to a podcast festival and it was fun because there were people that were like, "Oh my gosh, I oh, my episode only has it's really bad. It only has 100 downloads." And we're like, "Oh my gosh, we're so excited. We finally had an episode that hit 50 downloads. We're so happy." And then somebody else is like, "Oh," and it was really cool to be around a lot of people where it was like you literally cannot compare yourself to anybody else's success. Number 1. So that was
Right.
a fantastic life lesson to say you can't compare success.
To add in, hold on, before you go to your second point, I know you said number one. I also think on our stats, I notice weekly listen, uh, download numbers, whatever. We host our podcast through Buzzsprout, and we love being partners with them and the work that they do. Then we get a weekly email that says, "This is how many people listen to your podcast this week." And for a long while, our numbers were in the 20s, whereas like every week, about 20 people were listening to our podcast. And since going to Podfest, and I think we made some really tangible improvements on our podcast SEO, how we're naming things, how we're promoting some different things, that we've now moved up, that our weekly numbers are in somewhere between 30 and 50 every single week. And even those kinds of things where people are like, what do you mean you're really proud about 30 to 50? I'm like, I'm really proud about growth that we were starting at the beginning of the year. We would have weeks where you would suddenly have like, wow, 150 people listened to our episode this week. There was one week in particular, I went to a conference and told, I was a speaker and told everybody I had a podcast. And then I was like, what do you mean I had such huge listens this week? I had no idea what happened. Obviously, I know what happened now. But I think on the statistics, I think about if 20 people, if I was teaching a class to 20 people in a room, that would be incredible every single week. I would be so proud about those numbers. I don't care that I don't have 100 people in our room because I hear from the people who are listening to
Yeah.
our podcast regularly. They're like, this was really impactful. And so I'm excited that it's just going to continue to grow, whether it's 20 people, 30 people, 50 people, 1,000 people. I
Mhm.
don't care. It's been exciting to see the growth.
I agree, and to the point of, like, how it can help people. Like, I know that we have more in-depth conversations with people that we meet because they've heard something on the podcast, and I have encouraged people that are, like, on the journey of trying to make friends to come back to that. I'm like, if there's an episode of a podcast, this our podcast or any podcast, but ours that you really enjoyed, share it with somebody and then say, "Hey, let's grab coffee and talk about it." Like, if you are
Mhm.
trying to get your relationships to go a little bit deeper, a little bit less superficial, then this could be a way that you could introduce this idea.
Well, also on that point that people have deeper conversations, my conversations have changed by having a podcast because sometimes if we're being honest, Angela, I forget that it's not just you and I here in the room, that there is a third person here. And I'll have somebody come up to me and be like, so, blah, 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 this story that you shared. And I'll be like, how do you know about that story? And they're like, you put it on your podcast. I'd be like, I told the internet that story about myself. What was I thinking? Like, and I forget sometimes. Or I'll have somebody who will be like, oh, they'll try to make a reference to something. And I had one that somebody was listening to like the first, it was like episode like 63 or something. And they tried to make like a quick reference to it, like I would remember. And I'm like, dear friend, I am so glad that you think that my memory is that sharp that I can recall every single story that I have shared in over 150 episodes that I've been on. Whatever. It's fine.
Well,
So
and
sometimes your conversations are weird.
I love it when people will say to you, "That was me, wasn't it?" And you're like, "That wasn't you, actually." And they're like, "Oh, I thought that was me." Like, friends of ours will think that we're
Yes,
talking about them, and we're like, "No, we had somebody else in mind when we were telling that story." It's also fun when we
exactly.
stop recording and I guess who the person is or you guess who the person is. Anyway.
I love that. So this year, if you have been listening with us in 2025, at the beginning of the year, Angela and I actually had an exercise that one of our shortest episodes, is, so if you want to go back and listen to it, it's real fast, walks through this exercise about setting kind of goals and intentions for the year, but really for any time, in a different and unique and very metaphorical way. You know, we love our good metaphor here. And so we wanted to take this moment because 175 is a good milestone episode. And we're about halfway through the year to sort of check in on that moment. So, Angela, do you want to tee up if
Yeah.
people give me the quick version of what it is we did?
Yeah, so what we did is we sat down the first week of January and Sammy said, "Okay, instead of you hate SMART goals, so here's another method that I want to try, and it's what island are we sailing to? So let's imagine that we are in a sailboat, and the sailboat is, the way we earn a living, and in our case, a business. What island are we sailing to?" And it just really changed from like a annual thing to like a much bigger conversation to like, wow, okay, what do I want to think back on to really say. And I remember getting to the end of it and go, we're not setting revenue goals this year. Oh, that was not the intention at the beginning of it. The intention at the beginning was actually to back our way into what our revenue goals were for the year. And we ended up, and to finish out the metaphor, you can go listen, but the sailboat is the business and the sails are how you capture the kind of the fuel. So in our scenario, it's go ahead.
Well, also, the metaphor has evolved over time. So where Angela has taken the metaphor today is actually a little bit different from how we set it up in January, which is how a good metaphor should be. It should evolve with you over time. Originally, it was set that the boat is like your how, like your way of being there. You have a sail that might be like you're actually the wind is a big part of it. What are the business activities that are going to lead you and push you towards the island? And then what are your anchors? What are the things that are going to slow you down and prevent you from getting to where you want to go? I think for the purpose of our check-in today,
Yeah,
our
it's perfect.
island, we're just really talking about where the
Yeah,
island is
sorry.
and what it is. No, you're no sorry. This is great. I think it's helpful for people to see that we in particular with our ADHD selves, if something's not exactly working, we change it. We
Yeah.
adjust it. And so that starts one where it ends somewhere else. We added in a keel, we've added in other parts of the metaphor. It's a whole thing. Um, our island that we determined, where are we headed to? There were three components that we agreed on that really everything else like boiled down to these three things. The first one is making an impact. The work that we do needs to make an impact. It's not fulfilling for us to make money for money's sake. It needs to help change lives, make a difference, do something. Now keep in mind, make an impact. It's not a smart goal. It's very vague, it's hard to measure, hard to quantify all these things. That's on purpose. Angela, do you want to go up goal number two?
So then the second part of it for us was we wanted to do fun and interesting work.
Mhm.
And that's really critical because we've been in a transition. And actually, the podcast started because we wanted to do a transition in our business from purely marketing services to more leadership development services for family business. And the fascinating thing about that is that we sat around our table at our family meeting one day and said, "Do you care about marketing? Do you care about marketing? Do you care about marketing? Okay, great. We're not going to focus on marketing." And they were like, "Wait, wait, wait. You didn't ask dad." And I'm like, except I've been married to dad. So I know he does not care about marketing. And it's fascinating how I've come full circle and come back to even, I'm back to doing a lot of marketing in amidst my leadership development, executive coaching, and it is so much more fulfilling now than it was. It was so
Mm.
much more grind it out, 3.5 years ago. And even that's interesting in this. And I can't figure out, is it because I've set the goal to have fun and interesting work, or is it because and see the impact, or is it because I just got re-energized for marketing? That remains to be seen. So that's the second component is fun and interesting work. And third
And
one,
then the third one is our interpretation on work life balance. So, if you go back, episode 2 of the podcast starts a series on the wheel of life. So, you can download this on the Be Freaking Awesome website, but it's so foundational that literally episode 2 starts to set up this concept of evaluating all of these different components. And so, our actual goal is having a well rounded life. Okay. In the wheel of life, there are 10 categories. And you are encouraged to review this periodically. Maybe that's annually, maybe it's not. Some of the categories are family, fun, career, finances, physical health, spiritual health, those kinds of things. And
play and fun.
we play and fun, we wanted to make sure that it's not just work life balance that feels too binary in the way that we do work, but it is especially because sometimes our work is our life and sometimes our life is our work and sometimes these things all blend together and it's hard to actually see, did I have work life balance? If I really love my work, is that a problem that I worked extra? So well-rounded life for us that we cannot pursue these business goals at the cost of like we're only focusing on career and we're not focusing on anything else. There needs to be good time for friendships. There needs to be really good time for physical health and being active and community engagement. And so those kinds of things. So I think those are our three goals for the year. Well-rounded life, fun and interesting work and making an impact.
I would say that I will be surprised if we come up with different goals next year,
I think
different
so
kind of
too.
strategy, because I feel like that, you know, it's funny when you have a real chipper young person come and interview with your company and they'll be like, "Where do you see the company in 5 years?" And I just laugh at them. Like, that's hilarious. Nobody saw COVID coming. And being in business 26 years, I've seen Y2K, the 2001 internet bust, the 2008 recession, and then COVID, and we've survived all of that. So I would say resilience is the name of the game, and it'll be very curious to watch that unfold, but it has made such a neat decision-making lens when we
Mhm.
consider doing things. I have gotten my I've really gotten clarity on the type of volunteer work that I do. So I have one organization I volunteer with nationally. I have one organization I volunteer with state, and luckily that same organization has a local chapter. I talk a lot about the League of Women Voters here, and so it's very cool to like even understand that for me is well rounded. That I'm not just tied into the community, but I'm working locally, I'm working state and national level. There's just so much. One of the wheels of life spokes is fulfillment, and so it's a very challenging to kind of measure fulfillment, and this lens that I've been looking at the world through, to the point that, like, I had a U of A team that was competing in Governor's Cup, and they reached out to me on LinkedIn and, "Hey, would you coach us?" And then after we had a session and I, like, kinda tore apart their thing, and they sent me a
With
text.
love.
So much love. Um, their presentation, 3 days before they present, no problem. They sent me a text and were like, "How do we pay you?" I we need to know how this works. And I was like, oh no, you guys need to get through. If you go to state, then we'll talk about money. But right now, you today allowed me to achieve my goal because I took some time out of work. I took an hour and a half out of my workday to pour into you. And I love the work that you're doing and I want to encourage you. And so I got to make an impact. I got to do fun and interesting work. And I got to
Be
be
well-rounded.
well rounded, just by a very nature of my job allowed me to take an hour and a half and be on a Zoom call. It's funny because then I ended up at a conference, a work conference, and had to step out at one point to kind of, how did it go? Like, what's happening? Anyway, so it's been a really neat direction.
I like that. I also wanna call out, I think that the way that you are intentional in your volunteer efforts, one of the things that I think I struggle with, and I know other people struggle with, is that there's so much to be done in the
Yes.
world that it is hard sometimes to say, well, if I'm just focusing on this one thing, am I actually making enough of a difference? And I think that in the same way, if I have $10 and I go donate $1 to 10 organizations, those 10 organizations will appreciate that $1. Don't get me wrong. But if I gave that $10 to one organization, they can do more with $10 than 10 organizations can do with $1. And so with our time, it is also similar that yes, you can do a lot of small things, or you can pick some things to go deep in, and that is okay and good. And if we're all picking different things to go deep in,
And
then
and I
it's
have a
great,
friend that's pretty new to Northwest Arkansas, and over the last 2 years, she has volunteered for all kinds of things and is now like, okay, I've tried all these. Now she knows which organizations that she's really excited about and which ones she's going deep. So there could be a season that you do
right?
try a lot of different things. And she, did a lot of she got to go to a lot of cool events because she would just volunteer to like work the silent auction table or do registration or whatever it was. And then she would get to also go to the event and do great networking. But it was a neat way to watch her be able to see, oh, now I know these are these people, their ethos, my ethics, my heart match, and then it feels so much more fulfilling when she gives into those organizations.
So, to wrap up, when we have guests, we ask them, what's one thing you want to leave people with? Well, we're going to come back a lot. So, instead of that, Angela, how have you changed since you started the podcast from November of 2021 to now? What do you think is different?
I Well, I mean, golly, my personal growth journey is, ever evolving. It has been fun to be able to share that and document it in this way. I feel like one of my, I think, kind of life purpose is to share value. And so if I'm at a networking event, I want to be valuable. sh- And if that's making a connection. And so I get to live that out every week with this. That's not how I've changed. It's just a neat way that I get to execute. Um, I think in the beginning, I would say probably the first 40 or 50 episodes, I was not super comfortable with the messy middle on the podcast. I A little bit. I mean, I talked about on episode 22, 23 about, oh, I'm just figuring out I have attachment disorder issues. And I didn't know. I thought those were cute features of my personality. I didn't know it was a bug. Awesome. That's fun. So I was maybe a little bit, but I think the longer I've been, the more comfortable I am being really vulnerable. And there's plenty of people that are going to be like, what? You've always been like this. I'm like, yeah, it's cute. Y'all all think that I'm super open and you don't see what I wrestle with before I'm able feel comfortable sharing.
No, the thing that I will remember, this is going on the internet. I think about sometimes that if I am 90% open and vulnerable, my 90% is a lot greater than most other people's like 10 to 20% open and vulnerable, but they never notice that there's a 10% that they never saw.
Yeah.
They think it was 100%. And so it's complicated for me authenticity wise when people are like, you're so open, you tell us everything. I'm like, I tell you everything that I want, because even though I do remember that these things are going on the internet, and there have been times where you and I have had a conversation that, "Hey, I'm not gonna talk about this on the podcast. Like, I'm not ready, or I don't wanna talk about this topic," whatever it might be.
Oh, I had the recent experience of we recorded an episode on grief the day between my grandma passing away and my grandma's funeral. And I was like, we
Right.
not talking about it. It's too fresh right now. We're not going to talk about that here. I think there's also, and that doesn't make us any less authentic. A lot of times, what you and I've talked about is the idea that um, in a one-on-one situation, there are people that we encounter that are even 80%, 90% vulnerable is too much. So we try to be empathetic to their journey. And I think what's cool about the podcast is that we don't have to factor that in quite so much. We
Yeah,
just
if you
us
don't
and the
wanna
internet.
listen, then
Yeah.
what are you
If
still
it
doing here
if it's
29
too
minutes
much.
in?
Right. Yeah. What about you? How have you changed?
So when I started with the podcast, even in November 21, even though I wasn't on the front of the mic, I was still behind the podcast and helping with a lot of production and sometimes content strategy and things like that. I think I have grown in my confidence significantly, and the belief and the perspective that we have something worthwhile to share. And I actually don't think that that's unique to you and I. I think if you are listening to this podcast and you think you have something about, oh, who's going to listen to me? Mm-mm, stop it. Get over that. Let's kabosh. We got lots of stuff. I can probably be more delicate about that particular line of thinking, but we have something valuable to share and our perspective is unique, and our relationship, you and I, is unique in that there are not a lot of people who could do 3 years of podcasting with their mom and still be like, no, this is one of my favorite things that I get to do and I get to come back to all the time. I don't know. I think that my confidence in the reassurance, which has actually been perfect in the journey with our expansion of offerings and my coaching journey, in that, when I graduated college at 21, roughly speaking, I wanted to coach people. And I was like, no one's going to listen to me. People don't want to listen to a 21-year-old tell them how to communicate. And then I get past some things and I continue on my journey and I go, oh, it actually doesn't matter how old I am. If I am willing to help teach people about how to communicate better, people are willing to listen. And there is somebody out there who can benefit from what we have to share. And that's part of why we keep doing it. Whether it's 1 listen a week or 1,000 listens a week, is that there's one person out there that can benefit and their life can be made better and their life will change just by the very nature that we continue to show up. And so that's something that I'm really proud of as well.
Love it.
Well, thank you guys so much for being here with us on our journey. And if you're not already subscribed, go to the Be Freaking Awesome website to do that. Follow us on social media, do all of the things. We're really grateful for you guys and being on the journey and how much you tell your friends. Send us a note. Would love to hear from more people about what you guys like, don't like. You're allowed to tell me what you don't like, and that's fine. We'll take it. I'll hear all the feedback and all the things.
Yeah, we used to have episodes that were an hour and 10 minutes, and we don't have those anymore because we heard from too many people. That's intimidating. When I see it on my podcast roll, it's intimidating. So I'm like, okay.
Now we have 2-part episodes.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you guys so much for being with us along this journey. This is as much your win as it is our win to continue to reach 175. So until next week, we hope you guys go be freaking awesome.